Hello there, welcome back to Salón de Idiomas. Today, I want to bring you a couple of interesting details about the LanguageCERT test. Now, firstly, this test can be done in the traditional way, going to a certified establishment by the LanguageCERT in order to take the test, or you can do it from home, actually. Now, another little detail is that this test counts with an insurance called Take 2, which if you unfortunately fail the test, you can retake it by just a little sum. Another interesting thing is that this test is done in two parts. It has the written exam and the spoken exam. In the spoken exam, you're only going to do the speaking, which takes about 15 minutes. And in the written test, or the written exam, you're going to do the listening, the reading, and then the writing in that order. Now, another thing that you want to make sure of is to download the software before you're taking the test, at least 2 hours, since sometimes even your antivirus is going to give you some trouble. Sometimes the antivirus is not going to let it run, so you have to deactivate it or something like that. If it doesn't happen, then just make sure that it works perfectly fine. Next tip, make sure to not use wireless headphones. Instead, you have to use these, since otherwise the software is not going to run. Be careful of that. Now, another little thing is that when you're taking the written test, the examiner is going to tell you to take off your headphones after taking the listening test. Nonetheless, make sure to not unplug your headphones. Believe me, I was there and it was extremely uncomfortable. Now, for the speaking test, you are allowed to use a paper sheet. Nonetheless, make sure that this one is actually a new one, not a recycled one, something that has something written on the back. Otherwise, the examiner is going to get mad at you and you're not going to be able to use any kind of paper. Besides, make sure that you're also going to use a pen or a pencil. Nothing else is allowed. So be careful of that. Lastly, once you have finished the test, make sure to destroy this piece of paper in front of the examiner. Once you have taken your test, you are going to know the results in only 3 days, actually. And when you have passed your test, if you have passed your test, you're going to get your certificate in about 2 or 3 weeks. Isn't that great? Well, the entire experience is not as terrifying as it sounds. Actually, the examiner is going to be really nice to you throughout the entire experience, and they're going to help you out if you ever have any doubts. Don't worry about it, everything's going to be fine. So just keep studying and stay cool. Now, verify that you're able to spell your last name, as it is actually the very first question you're asked. Nonetheless, don't worry, this is actually just an icebreaker question, so it's not that big of a deal. Next, we have that the test has 4 parts, actually. Besides the introduction, where you say where you're from, as well as you are going to spell your last name, you are actually going to talk about simple things, actually really random questions. Perhaps you're going to talk about for 30 seconds or something like that. Pretty much is what is your opinion on common daily topics, as well as some personal questions, okay? For the second part, you're going to do a little role play with examiner, which you're going to be provided with the first situation, which examiner is going to start, and then the second situation, you are going to be the one who starts. Just make sure that you're going to brush upon your acting. With the third part, you might stumble upon a monologue that you have to develop with a spiral diagram, or you're gonna have to do a little debate with the examiner. Don't be so nervous. You're just gonna have kind of like a little argument. That is not quite that, okay? For the fourth part, you're going to talk about a certain topic, or actually like an idiom. Yeah, an idiom. Tell me a time that something was a piece of cake for you, and you have to talk for 2 minutes. You have 1 minute to prepare. And here you are going to be able to use your paper sheet. So you can take notes in this minute. That's up to you. Lastly, after you have finished your entire speech, your little speech, the examiner is going to ask you a follow-up question, which you have to answer in about a minute, something depending on the examiner's mood. And yeah, that will be it for the entire speaking test. Now, this is actually the first part of the written exam. It takes about 30 minutes to do the entire thing, and it has 4 parts. The first part, you're going to finish some conversations with 3 options, okay? Really short conversations, actually. Now, in the second part, you're going to listen to 3 conversations where you're going to have to answer 2 questions for each conversation. These are a little bit longer, kind of like a minute or something like that. Then you have the third part, which tends to be a little bit more frightening than the rest of the test, since you're gonna listen to a monologue and you have to write your answers with only 1 or 5 words. However, this is not as terrifying as it sounds. You can actually write the specific words that they're asking for or something similar. Both are totally fine. Well, obviously, if you're writing dates or numbers or something along those lines, you have to write exclusively those, okay? Now, for the last part, you're going to listen again to a long conversation, only one conversation, just a long one. It takes about 3 minutes, and you have to answer 7 questions for the entire conversation. No worries, you can listen to everything twice, so it's not as difficult as it sounds. And well, that will be it. Hello there, everyone. Today, I want to talk about the reading part of the LanguageCERT test. This is part of the written exam, and it can only be done after the listening test. In the first part, you're going to read a little story where you're going to have to answer whether some questions are true or false, some statements. Then, in part 2, you're going to have to fill the gaps of an entire article with entire paragraphs. So this can actually be a little bit tricky. In the third part, you are going to say who says what, pretty much, which means that you're going to have 4 opinions, and then you're going to have to answer which person says which of the opinions that are being asked. For the fourth part, this can be a little bit frightening. However, it's not that difficult as it looks, okay? You're going to have an article where you're going to have to answer 7 questions, and you have to write these answers from 1 to 5 words, okay? However, the answers are written, so don't worry. Just make sure that you're going to look for synonyms or something along those lines. Oh, by the way, when you're taking this test, after doing the listening part, you are going to be asked to take off your headphones. However, make sure to not unplug them. Otherwise, you might gonna have to solve some technical hitches. Yeah, that will be it. In this part, you're gonna have to write 2 compositions. One of these is going to be from 150 to 200 words, and the second one is going to have 350 words to 300. In each of these compositions, you're going to have to write either an article or an essay or a story, a report, a proposal, or an informal letter, a formal letter, or even a letter to the editor. If you want to know more about all these compositions, you can check our blog or our YouTube channel, where we have definitely some really useful tutorials where you're going to find more information. Take care. Bye.